Captain Marcus Reyes stood alone on the observation deck of the USS Prometheus, watching Earth shrink behind him through 6 inches of reinforced glass. 3 years ago, they had stripped him of his command and called him reckless. Tonight, the same admirals who signed that order were sending him out again, and this time there would be no coming back if he failed. The ship groaned beneath his feet, a deep metallic sound that no engineer could explain. Prometheus was old, cobbled together from salvage hulls and experimental parts nobody fully understood anymore. Half the crew called her a death trap. The other half called her a ghost ship, because systems sometimes activate on their own, long before anyone touched a control panel. It had happened again just an hour ago. The reactor core hummed to life on its own, 3 full minutes before the scheduled startup sequence. Chief Engineer Dana Osei had run every diagnostic twice and found nothing wrong. Nothing wrong, and no explanation either. Marcus didn't have time to chase ghosts. His orders were simple and impossible at once. A mining colony on the edge of human territory had gone silent 2 days ago. Scouts reported unidentified warships moving through that sector, and Prometheus was the only vessel close enough to reach the colony before whatever was coming got there first. No backup, no second ship, just one crew of 41 people and a warship the Navy had quietly written off years ago. He pressed his palm against the cool glass and thought about the last time he'd stood on a bridge with real authority. That mission had gone wrong too, though not for the reasons the review board had claimed. He'd made a call to save lives, and it cost him his rank. Nobody wanted to hear that version of the story. Tonight, nobody had a choice but to trust him with one more chance, because there was no one else left to send. Footsteps echoed behind him. Lieutenant Commander Ava Torres, his second-in-command, stepped up beside him with a data pad tucked under her arm. She'd requested this posting herself, against the advice of everyone who knew her career was still worth saving. "Final head count's in," she said. 41 souls, full fuel reserves, weapon systems at 80%. It's not much, but it's what we've got. "It'll have to be enough," Marcus said. Ava hesitated, glancing at the reactor readout glowing faintly on the wall panel. "Sir," about the power spike earlier. Osei ran the numbers 3 times. The reactor drew energy from somewhere that isn't on any schematic we have. Marcus turned from the window. Somewhere like where? She doesn't know. She's never seen a signature like it. It's like something down in the lower decks is pulling power on its own. The lower decks. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Deck 7 had been sealed since before he took command, listed in every manifest as non-operational cargo storage. No access without direct authorization from Fleet Command itself. He'd asked about it once, years ago, and been told to drop the question. He'd been the kind of officer who followed orders back then. "Give me eyes on Deck 7, he said quietly. "Sir, that clearance isn't ours to." "I don't care whose clearance it is anymore, Ava. We're flying into a fight nobody can explain, on a ship that's doing things nobody can explain. If there's something down there that could get my crew killed, or something that could keep them alive, I want to know before we're 40 light years from home." Ava didn't argue further. She only nodded and turned toward the corridor, already keying commands into her data pad. Marcus stayed a moment longer, watching her vanish into starlight, and felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in 3 years. Not fear exactly. Something closer to the feeling of standing at the edge of a door he wasn't sure he was ready to open. The ship's intercom crackled. Osei's voice came through, tight and fast. "Captain, you need to see this." Deck 7 just registered movement. Marcus was already moving before she finished the sentence. He crossed the corridor in long strides, past crew members who straightened as he passed the humming walls of a ship that seemed more and more to be alive in ways no one had told him about. He reached the lift and slammed his palm against the panel for the lowest deck, the one that had never once, in 3 years of service, shone a single light on the security grid. The doors opened onto darkness and a long-forgotten smell of cold metal and dust. Somewhere ahead, past rows of sealed containers stamped with warnings faded by time, something shifted. A slow, heavy sound like breathing. Marcus stepped forward into the dark, and for the first time in years, he had absolutely no idea what he was about to find. Marcus moved deeper into the dark, one hand resting on the sidearm at his hip, out of habit more than confidence. His flashlight cut a narrow beam through decades of dust, sliding over stacked containers marked with warning labels so old the paint had cracked and peeled. None of the labels said what was inside. All of them said the same thing in faded red letters. Authorization required. Fleet command only. Behind him, Ava caught up, breathing hard from the run-down 3 decks. She raised her own light, and together the twin beams swept across a space larger than either of them expected. Easily the size of a small hangar, hidden inside a ship that supposedly had no room to spare. "This isn't cargo storage," Ava said quietly. "No," Marcus agreed. "It isn't." The breathing sound came again, slow and deep, echoing off unseen walls. Marcus followed it past rows of containers until the space opened into a wide chamber at the center of the deck. There, resting inside a ring of dormant machinery, was something neither of them had words for, a shape easily 30 feet long, curled in on itself, covered in scales that caught the flashlight beams and threw back a dull, bronze shine. Thick chains, corroded with age, wrapped around its body and anchored into the floor. Ava's light trembled slightly as she raised it higher. "Captain, is that—" "I don't know what that is," Marcus said, though some old, half-forgotten part of him already recognized the shape from stories his grandmother used to tell, stories he dismissed as fairy tales meant to entertain children before bed. The creature's side rose and fell with slow, steady breath. Alive, then? Whatever it was alive, and it had been sitting in the belly of a ship the entire time he commanded her, chained in the dark by people who never told him it was here. His communicator buzzed. Osei's voice came through, tense and quick. "Captain, the reactor's drawing power again. Same signature as before. It's coming from your location." Marcus looked at the chains, then at the dormant machinery ringing the chamber, humming faintly now, lights flickering weakly along old control panels that shouldn't have had power at all. Somehow, whatever was chained here was connected to the ship itself, feeding it or being fed by it. Neither explanation made sense, and both filled him with a low, uneasy dread. "Get me everything in the ship's archive on Deck 7, Marcus said. "Every file, every record. I don't care how deep it's buried." "Already searching," Osei replied. "Sir, there's something else." Long-range sensors just picked up 3 unidentified contacts, bearing 220, closing fast. They weren't there a minute ago. Ava's head snapped up. "That's not possible. Nothing can appear that fast without cloaking tech." "Well, something just did," Osei said. "Captain, they're on an intercept course. ETA 11 minutes. Marcus took one last look at the sleeping creature chained in the dark, questions piling up faster than he could ask them, and forced himself back toward the present danger. Whatever secret the ship was hiding would have to wait. "Seal this deck. Ava, with me. We need to be on the bridge." They ran back through the ship, past crew members scrambling to battle stations as the alert klaxon began its low, rising wail. By the time Marcus reached the bridge, the main view screen already showed 3 sleek shapes emerging from the black, hulls a dull gray that seemed to swallow the starlight around them. Nothing about their design matched any known human or allied vessel. "Identify," Marcus ordered, dropping into the captain's chair. "Unable to match against any database," the tactical officer replied. "They're not broadcasting any recognized signal." "Try hailing them anyway." Static answered, then silence. The 3 ships spread into a loose formation, moving with precision that suggested they knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what Prometheus was capable of. Marcus felt his pulse climb. This wasn't a random encounter. Someone had sent them here, to this ship, and he had a growing suspicion it wasn't a coincidence that they'd arrived less than a minute after the reactor drew power from whatever was sleeping in the dark below. "Captain," Osei's voice cut to the comm again, quieter now, almost uncertain. "The power signature from Deck 7. It's rising. Whatever's down there, I think it just woke up a little more." On the view screen, the lead alien ship rotated slowly, weapons ports along its hull beginning to glow with a dim, pulsing light. Marcus gripped the armrest of his chair, 41 lives resting on decisions he'd have second to make, and somewhere beneath his boots, chained in the dark, something ancient stirred at the exact moment his crew needed a miracle most. "Shields up," he said, voice steady despite the storm building in his chest. "All hands, brace for contact." The first shot came half a heartbeat later, and the black sky outside the view screen lit up like the opening line of a war nobody on board fully understood yet. The first strike hit Prometheus's forward shields and sent a shudder through the entire hull. Marcus braced against his chair as consoles flickered around him, red warning lights blooming across the tactical display. "Shields holding at 70%, the tactical officer called out. "They're not going for a kill shot. It's like they're testing us." Marcus watched the 3 alien ships reposition on the view screen, moving with a coordinated precision that made his stomach tighten. Testing was worse than attacking. It meant they had time to spare and confidence they wouldn't need it. "Return fire. Forward batteries," Marcus ordered. Prometheus answered with a burst of light that lanced across the black and struck the nearest alien vessel along its flank. The shot connected. But the enemy ship barely reacted, its hull absorbing the impact like it had been built for exactly this kind of fight. "That's not standard plating," the tactical officer said, disbelief creeping into his voice. "Our shots should have done more damage than that." Marcus didn't have time to consider what that meant. A second alien ship broke formation and swung wide, angling toward Prometheus's unshielded underside, exactly where Deck 7 sat hidden beneath layers of hull plating. His pulse spiked. They weren't testing the ship. They were testing a location. "Ose, status on Deck 7. Marcus said into the comm. "Power signature still climbing," she answered, breathless. "Captain, whatever's down there, I think it knows we're under attack." The ship lurched hard to starboard as a third strike hit home, this one closer, rattling loose panels along the bridge ceiling. Ava grabbed the edge of her console to stay upright. "Captain, if they're after Deck 7, we can't let them breach it. Whatever that thing is, we don't know if it's a threat or a target." Marcus made his decision in the space of a breath. "Redirect auxiliary power to aft shields, reinforce the lower hull. I'm not losing this ship trying to protect a secret nobody bothered to explain to me." The order went out, and for a moment it seemed to work. Aft shields flared brighter, absorbing the next 2 strikes with barely a tremor. Then the lead alien ship fired something different, a narrow beam that sliced clean through the shield like it wasn't there at all, striking the hull directly above Deck 7. Alarm screamed through the bridge. "Hull breach. Deck 7, Section 3. Ose reported, panic edging into her voice now. "Captain, containment's failing." Marcus was out of his chair before he'd fully decided to move. "Ava, you have the bridge. Keep those shields up as long as you can." He didn't wait for her response, sprinting for the lift, taking the corridors 2 at a time as the ship shuddered under continued fire. By the time he reached Deck 7, smoke curled to the air near the breach point, and emergency lighting cast everything in a dim, pulsing red. The chains that had held the creature were broken. Marcus froze at the sight, flashlight beam catching a pair of golden eyes staring back at him from the dark, eyes far too intelligent for what he'd expected to find. The creature had lifted its massive head, scales catching what little light there was, and for a long moment, nothing moved except the slow rise and fall of its chest. Then it spoke, and the voice that filled the chamber was low, resonant, and impossibly calm given the chaos above them. Marcus Reyes. His name. It knew his name. "You freed the chains," it continued, though Marcus hadn't touched anything, hadn't done a single thing except walk through the door. Or perhaps the ship did, sensing what it needed. Either way, the debt is the same. Marcus found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "What debt? What are you?" "A question for later," the creature said, rising slowly, wings unfolding in confined space with a sound like tearing silk. "Your enemies above are not searching for a secret cargo. Captain, they are searching for me, and they have been searching for a very long time." Another explosion rocked the deck, closer this time, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Marcus staggered but kept his footing, staring up at a creature 3 times his height, ancient and wounded, and somehow tied to a ship he commanded for 3 years without ever knowing what slept beneath his boots. "If they find you," Marcus said slowly, "what happens to my crew?" The dragon's golden eyes narrowed, something like sorrow passing through them. "If they find me, Captain, your crew becomes collateral in a war that started long before your species left its own solar system. I did not choose to be hidden aboard your vessel. but I will not let it become their grave because of me." Marcus stared at the creature. 41 lives weigh on his shoulders, an enemy fleet outside tearing his ship apart, an ancient stranger standing before him offering something between a warning and a promise. Whatever answers he'd come down here looking for, he was starting to understand they came with a cost far larger than he'd been prepared for. "Then help me protect them," Marcus said, "and you can explain the rest once we're still alive to hear it." The dragon studied him for a long moment, something unreadable shifting behind those ancient eyes, before it lowered its head in something close to a nod. "Very well, Captain. Let us see if your ship and your crew are worth the debt I owe." Marcus led the dragon toward the breach point, though led felt like the wrong word for guiding something that moved with more certainty through the smoke-filled corridors than he did. Its wings folded tight against its body, scales scraping softly against the walls of passages never built to hold something this size. "These halls will not contain me for long," the dragon said, voice low against the sound of distant impacts rattling the hull. "Tell your crew to clear the upper corridors. I would rather not crush anyone on my way to defend them." Marcus keyed his calm, relaying the order to Ava, who didn't question it, though he could hear the disbelief in the pause before she responded. Word was already spreading through the ship. Crew members pressed themselves against bulkheads as the two of them passed, eyes wide, weapons half raised and uncertain what to do with them. By the time they reached the breach, 3 alien boarding pods had already latched onto the hull, cutting through reinforced plating with beams of blue-white light. Armored figures dropped through the widening gap, weapons raised, moving with the same cold precision Marcus had seen in their ships. The first shots came fast. Marcus dug behind a bulkhead, returning fire as best he could, buying seconds he wasn't sure would matter. Then the dragon stepped past him into the breach, and everything changed. It didn't roar, didn't charge blindly the way Marcus half expected. It moved with deliberate control, one clawed foot driving into the deck plating for leverage as its tail swept low, scattering the first wave of boarders before they could adjust their aim. Weapons fire scorched against its scales and mostly skidded away, though Marcus caught the winds that crossed its face when one shot found a gap near its shoulder, an old wound reopening. "It's hurt," Marcus said into his calm, watching a thin line of dark blood trace down the dragon's foreleg. "Ose, I need eyes on that boarding party's numbers. How many more are coming?" Sensors showed 2 more pods inbound, Ose answered. "Captain, the alien flagship is repositioning. I don't like what that means." Marcus didn't like it either. He pushed off the bulkhead and moved closer to the fight, firing at an armored figure trying to flank the dragon's injured side. The shot connected, dropping the attacker, and the dragon's head turned toward him for half a second, something like surprise flickering behind its golden eyes before it refocused on the fight. "You did not have to do that," it said, voice strained now, breath coming harder. "You didn't have to step in front of my crew," Marcus answered, ducking another shot. "Guess we're both doing things we don't have to." The dragon's next attack was faster, driven by something sharper than before, and within moments the remaining boarders were retreating back toward their pods, dragging wounded companions with them. The pods disengaged, sealing the breach as they pulled away, but Marcus's relief lasted only a few seconds. "Captain," Ose's voice came through, tight with urgency. "The flagship's charging something big. Power readings are off every chart I have." Marcus turned toward the dragon, who had gone very still, had lifted toward the breach as if it could see straight through the hull to the ship beyond. "They found me," it said quietly. "That weapon is not meant for your ship, Captain. It is meant for me." "Then we don't let it hit either one of us," Marcus said, already moving for the comm panel. "Ava, redirect everything we got to forward shields, now. Ose, I need evasive maneuvers the second that weapon fires." "Captain, if we take a hit like that at close range, we might not survive it," Ava said, but she was already relaying the order, trusting in the way she had years ago, before the review board and the disgrace and everything that came after. Marcus looked at the dragon, blood still tracing down its foreleg, ancient eyes fixed on him with something between calculation and reluctant respect. "There's a way to survive this," it said slowly, "but it will cost you something you may not wish to give." "Name it." "Trust," the dragon said. "Complete and total. The kind your species rarely offers anything not born on your own world." If I am to shield this ship, I need access to the reactor core, the same one that has fed me in secret for 3 years without your knowledge. Deny me that, and we both face that weapon unshielded. Marcus had exactly 4 seconds to decide. The countdown on the tactical display ticking down toward the enemy's charged weapon. 41 lives balanced against a choice his instinct screamed against, and his gut told him was the only real option left. "Osei," he said, voice steady despite everything. "Give it full access to the reactor. Do it now." The ship's lights dimmed as power rerouted, and the dragon's eyes flared gold, bright as twin suns, as the enemy weapon fired across the black toward Prometheus and everything Marcus had left to protect. The weapon's light filled the view screen an instant before it struck, and Marcus braced for an impact that never came the way he expected. Instead, a shimmering field bloomed around Prometheus's hull, gold and translucent, humming with a frequency that vibrated to the deck plating under his boots. The enemy's strike hit that field and scattered outward in ribbons of dissipating energy, the ship shuddering hard but holding together. On the bridge, alarms cut out one by one as the crew stared at readings that made no sense. "Shields are down," the tactical officer said, voice unsteady. "That wasn't our shields, Captain. Something else stopped that hit." Marcus already knew what. Standing in the breach corridor as the dragon staggered, one clawed foot dragging against the deck, breath ragged from whatever it had just done. Blood dripped steadily now from the wound in its shoulder, and its wings sagged lower than before. "That will not work twice," the dragon said, voice rough. "Not without cost I cannot yet afford to pay." Marcus keyed his comm. "Osei, damage report. Minimal, Captain, we're intact. But that flagship's charging again, faster this time. I don't think they're done." Ava's voice cut in, sharp with urgency. "Captain, long-range sensors just picked up 4 more contacts. Same signature as the first group. They're closing from the far side of the debris field." Marcus felt the weight of it settle over him. Not 3 ships anymore. 7, converging on a position that made retreat nearly impossible with an already damaged hull. He looked at the dragon, wounded and breathing hard, and understood with sudden clarity that whatever had been chained here for 3 years, it hadn't been hidden as cargo. It had been hidden as bait or as a weapon someone once decided was too dangerous to use and too valuable to destroy. "You said they've been searching for you a long time," Marcus said. "How long exactly?" "Long enough that entire empires have risen and fallen searching," the dragon answered. "Long enough that your own people made a bargain with mine, decades before you were born, to keep me hidden rather than hand me over. That bargain is the only reason your species still has a foothold on the stars beyond your solar system." Marcus absorbed it in silence, pieces of a much larger picture sliding into place, questions multiplying faster than answers. "And now they found the ship carrying you. Now they intend to finish what they started centuries ago," the dragon said. "I am sorry, Captain. Your ship became a target the moment I was placed aboard her, whether either of us wished it or not." The bridge comm crackled again. "Captain, that flagship just fired something different. Smaller vessels. Looks like fighters. At least a dozen inbound." Osei's voice cracked with the strain of trying to track everything at once. "We can't hold against this many, not with our shields still recovering." Marcus made his way back toward the bridge, the dragon following slower now, favoring its wounded side. Every step brought new alarms, new numbers climbing on every display, the kind of overwhelming odds that would have made the old Marcus, the one from 3 years ago, freeze with the fear of making a wrong call in front of people who already doubted him. But the crew watching him now had chosen to fly with him anyway, knowing his history, knowing the risk. That mattered more than he'd expected it to. He dropped into the captain's chair as fighters swarmed the view screen, tracking Prometheus with practiced precision. "Ava, status. Weapons at 60%, shields still climbing back. We can take a few hits, Captain, not many." Marcus looked at the tactical display, then at the dragon standing just behind his chair, golden eyes fixed on the swarm of enemy fighters closing in. An idea began forming, reckless and uncertain, the kind of plan that had cost him his career once already. "The debris field Ava mentioned," Marcus said slowly. "Osei, can you get us into it? Tight maneuvering, minimal visibility." "It's risky, Captain. One wrong move, and we'd tear the hull apart ourselves." Do it anyway. If we can't outgun them, we outfly them. He glanced back at the dragon. Can you still fight if it comes to that? For my people, the dragon said quietly, I have fought through worse than this. For yours, apparently, I intend to as well. Prometheus banked hard toward the drifting field of shattered rock and metal, enemy fighters breaking formation to follow, and Marcus gripped the arms of his chair as the ship plunged into the dark. Carrying every soul aboard toward a fight none of them were guaranteed to survive. Prometheus tore into the debris field at a speed that made every warning light on the bridge flash at once. Chunks of shattered rock and twisted metal, remnants of some battle fought long before any of them arrived, spun past the view screen close enough to make the tactical officer flinch with every near miss. Fighters still tracking us, Ava called out, watching the display. They're not backing off. They won't, the dragon said from behind Marcus's chair, voice steadier now though blood still traced slow lines down his foreleg. My pursuers rarely retreat once they've located their target. Marcus kept his eyes forward, hands steady on the armrest despite the chaos outside. Osei, hold this course. Ava, target anything that gets within firing range, but conserve power where you can. We need everything we've got for whatever's waiting on the other side of this field. The ship weaved between drifting wreckage, hull groaning under the strain, and one by one the pursuing fighters began falling back, unable to match the tight maneuvering without risking their own destruction. Tootin pulled back in time. Marcus watched on the display as they clipped debris and spun away, tumbling out of the fight entirely. For a moment, it looked like the plan might actually work. Then the flagship itself emerged from the far side of the field, cutting a straight path through debris that smaller ships couldn't risk. Its hull carved by whatever ancient technology let it shrug off damage that would have crippled anything human-built. Marcus felt his stomach drop as its weapons began charging again, brighter this time, drawing far more power than the shot that had nearly ended them before. Captain, Osei said, voice tight, that's not the same weapon. Whatever this is, it's bigger. The dragon moved forward, positioning itself near the forward viewport despite its wounds, golden eyes narrowing at the shape bearing down on them. That signature, it said slowly. I know that ship. I did not expect to see it again in my lifetime. Friend or enemy? Marcus asked. The one who chained me, the dragon said, and something in its voice went cold. He believed containing me was mercy. He was wrong then, and he remains wrong now. Marcus didn't have time to unpack the weight behind those words. The flagship's weapon fired, a beam wider and brighter than before, and this time there was no shimmering field to answer it. The dragon lunged forward instead, physically placing itself between the beam and the ship's hull, wings spreading wide despite the wound still bleeding along its shoulder. The impact hit like a hammer blow, throwing Marcus from his chair as the entire bridge shuddered violently. Alarm screamed. Sparks rained from an overhead panel. When Marcus pulled himself upright, gripping the console for balance, he saw the dragon collapse near the viewport, scales scorched black along one side, breath coming in short, ragged bursts. No, Marcus said, moving toward it without thinking, ignoring Ava's shout to stay low. He dropped to one knee beside the massive, wounded creature, one hand pressed against its uninjured side, feeling the erratic rhythm beneath the scales. Hey, stay with me. You don't get to save my ship and then die on the floor of it. The dragon's golden eyes opened slightly, dimmer than before but still sharp, still aware. Your ship stands, Captain. It managed. That is what matters. It matters that you're still breathing, too. Marcus snapped, then turned toward the bridge crew, voice cutting through the chaos. Ava, status. Shields are gone. Hull integrity at 40%. We can't take another hit like that. Ava's voice shook slightly, the first crack Marcus had heard in her composure since they'd left Earth. Captain, that flagship's charging again. Marcus looked down at the dragon, barely conscious, then out at the enemy ship bearing down on them with no shield left to stop it, no weapon strong enough to answer in kind, and a crew of 41 people who had trusted him to bring them home. Every option left felt impossible. Then the dragon's eyes opened fully, locking onto his with sudden, fierce clarity. Captain, there is one thing left. A bond. Forged not through chains, but through choice, the kind your Navy never gave me and that flagship never understood. If you are willing, I can still shield this ship, but I will need more than the reactor this time. I will need you. Me? How? Your hand, Captain. Now, before that weapon fires again. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pressed his palm flat against the dragon's scales, and the world exploded into gold light, the ship's systems flaring bright as something ancient and vast surged to the hull. Through the reactor, through the two of them joined at a single point of contact, racing to meet the flagship's second strike before it could finish what the first had nearly done. The light swallowed everything, gold and blinding, and for one suspended moment Marcus felt something impossible pass between his palm and the dragon's scales. Not words exactly, but understanding. 3 years of chains, decades of hiding, a debt owed not to him alone, but at every small kindness his crew had shown a creature they didn't understand and had every reason to fear. Then the flagship's second strike hit, and the shield that answered it was stronger than anything before, a dome of light wrapping the entire hull, humming with a frequency that seemed to come from the ship itself as much as from the dragon. The beam struck and scattered, and this time Prometheus didn't shudder. She held. On the enemy flagship, something shifted. Marcus watched through the view screen as his weapons powered down, the vessel drifting to a stop at the edge of the debris field, as if its captain had felt that same surge of gold light and understood, finally, that the creature he'd once chained had chosen differently than he expected. "They're not firing," Ava said, disbelief coloring her voice. "Captain, they're retreating. All contacts pulling back." Marcus stayed kneeling beside the dragon, hands still pressed against its side, watching its breathing steady beneath his palm. The wound at its shoulder had stopped bleeding, the scorched scales along its side already knitting close with a faint golden shimmer. "You did that," Marcus said quietly. "Not just the shield. You made them stop." He recognized the bond, the dragon said, voice stronger now, though still tired. "A creature bound to me by chains. He could hunt without conscience. A creature bound to me by choice, protected by a crew willing to bleed for it. That is a different kind of claim entirely. Even he was not willing to test it further today." Slowly, carefully, the dragon rose to its full height, wings settling against its back, golden eyes moving across the bridge, across the crew who stared back with expressions caught somewhere between fear and wonder. Marcus stood beside it, and for the first time since stepping aboard Prometheus 3 years ago, he felt something other than the quiet way of disgrace following him through every corridor. "Ose, hull status," he said. "Holding steady, Captain. We took a beating, but we're intact. All decks reporting in, no casualties." A pause, then quieter. "Sir, I don't know what just happened down there, but whatever it was, it saved us." Marcus looked at the dragon beside him. "It has a name, I imagine. Feels wrong calling you nothing after everything you've done for this crew." "Caliph," the dragon said. It has been a long time since anyone asked. Word spread through Prometheus quickly after that, crew members finding excuses to pass by the lower decks, some out of caution, most out of quiet curiosity, until eventually caution gave way to something warmer. By the time Prometheus limped back toward Earth 2 days later, the ship that had once been dismissed as a death trap carried something no one back home would quite believe until they saw it themselves. The colony they'd been sent to defend had survived, the alien fleet's retreat pulling enemy attention away just long enough for reinforcements to arrive. It wasn't the clean victory the history books would later simplify it into, but it was enough. It was survival, bought at a cost that had nearly taken everything, and won by a captain the Navy had once tried to forget, and a creature that had waited 3 long years for someone worth trusting. When Prometheus finally reached Earth orbit, Marcus stood on the same observation deck where this had all begun. Kayla settled quietly beside him, scales catching the blue light of the planet below. Fleet Command had already requested his full report, along with what would undoubtedly be a very long list of questions about the creature standing beside their reinstated captain. "They will not know what to do with me," Kayla said, something almost like amusement in its voice. "They didn't know what to do with me either once," Marcus said. "Worked out all right in the end." Behind them, Ava stepped onto the deck, offering a small, tired smile that carried the weight of everything they'd survived together. Command's asking if he'll accept a formal debrief, captain, and formal reinstatement. if you're willing to take it." Marcus looked at Caliph, then back at Earth, turning slowly below them. And for the first time in 3 years, the answer came easily. "Tell them I accept," he said. "Both of us do." The dragon inclined its head, wings catching the light, and Prometheus drifted quietly home, carrying a crew that had chosen loyalty over fear, a captain who had finally earned back his name, and a bond between species that would, in time, become a foundation of something far larger than either of them yet understood. For now, it was enough simply to have made it home together, exactly as they promised each other they would.